Get on your feet and let's welcome Elizabeth McCormick to Clovis.
Thank you. It is my honor to be here. But you know, all that build-up, and I gotta tell you, I almost failed flight school. So, in order for you to understand that, I gotta kind of start at the beginning. You want to know how I started, how I got into flight school? That's like the juicy stuff, right? So I started off at college, and I have a degree in art, a minor in mathematics, an associate's degree in engineering. And then in my last year of college, I met my love. And so instead of going on to graduate school like I had planned, I followed him to Fort Polk, Louisiana. Has anyone been to Fort Polk, Louisiana? There's a reason they call it Fort Puke. We get there and I'm a military wife and I can't get a job. In fact, the only job I could get was the assistant manager of a pizza franchise. With all that college. So we're gonna call in my husband, we'll call him the starter husband. Anybody else got a starter spouse, or am I the only one? Yeah. So I look at the starter husband, and he was in the military, and I'm thinking, I'm looking at a pizza place. And I thought, there has got to be more to life than this. And I thought, well, if he could do it, why can't I? I literally did that and said, why not? But if I was going to join the Army, he was a medic. And I knew I didn't want to be a medic. I didn't want to see the blood and stuff. So I thought, well, if I'm going to join, I have a degree. I can go in as an officer. I can go in as anything. What's the coolest job I could think of? Well, heck, I didn't know. So I went to the base and I started asking around. I said, if you could do anything, what would you do? If you had to start over, what would you do different? And over again, I heard helicopter pilot. So again, I went, why not? So I went to the flight line out of Fort Rucker and drove down the dirt road and the dust blowing behind the car, and I stopped and pulled over, and I walked over to the chain link fence, and I looked at the flight line, the concrete pads of row after row after row of helicopter. And I just knew it was what I was meant to do. You ever have that feeling in your life where you're in the right place in the right time and it's like the light shining down and goes, oh! You ever have that moment in your life? It's amazing. I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. You see lesson number 1, and you got a little salmon color handout there in front of you. We're going to follow along the handout. I'm going to leave you with 6 lessons you can take home with you and implement right now. Lesson number 1 is believe in myself. This becomes really important. I'm going to show you. But before I do that, would it be okay if I go through a couple housekeeping things? All right. So first, we're in this beautiful venue, and I just want to recognize anyone else. Would you stand with me as a veteran so we can acknowledge all of you for your service? Please stand if you're a veteran. Now, if you are a family member of a veteran and have a loved one who has served, stand up too, because that takes a special kind of person to be there. Behind every soldier, every officer is a support system. It's critical. So, Friday, November 9th, Fresno City College is doing a lunch program over lunch hour to honor the veterans in this area for Veterans Day. So put that on your calendar, write on the handout. There's flyers out here in the lobby. I let them go ahead and put them on my table so you can grab one and support your local efforts for Veterans Day. Now, a couple of really quick things is if you want to take a picture with me afterwards, you can. At the end of the day, you can. I'm here all day. I'm here for you guys. So if you want to have a picture with me, I allow it. And in fact, if you want to take pictures at all, I am not camera shy. So in fact, I want you all to smile, and I want you to wave and say hi. Ready to say hi? Raise that hand up high. Perfect. How'd you know I was going to put that on Facebook? All right. So I want you to get your camera out. I want you to tag me. I want you to tweet. I'm not going to yell at you for having your phone out. Okay? So the last thing I want to let you know, and we'll continue the story, is I have out on my table out there, I have a feedback form. If you fill out the feedback form, you're one of the first 33, don't ask me why it's 33, that's how many I have, you get a little technology gift. So they have a cigarette USB charger. So you fill out a little feedback survey form for me and give me some good feedback and a nice testimonial for my website, and you get something for you. All right, believe in yourself. So what happened is I went inside to the flight line and I asked the lieutenants and the captains, and I said, if you had to do it over again, what would you do? Over and over again, they said, I'd go warrant officer. Now, does everybody know, who does not know the difference between a warrant officer and a lieutenant, captain, commissioned officer? That's normal, okay? So in the Army, the warrant officers are the ones who receive their appointment and their commission based on technical skill. They can't be tactically and technically proficient if they're out leading and doing other things and having to deal with management. How many of you feel like that in your business? You have to manage and be the tactical, technical, proficient person, right? Well, what they did, the Army split it. So the warrant officers fly, but also the commissioned officers fly, but their primary job is to lead. Secondary is flying. Who gets more flight time? Warrant officer. Who would you rather fly with? Okay. So I go to the warrant officers. They're in a separate room. They're all studying. They're all like quizzing each other on things, and I learned that this was normal. And I said, if you could change anything, what would you change? And they go, They're thinking, and then they're thinking, and he's thinking some more, and I'm like wondering if he fell asleep. And he goes, nothing. I wouldn't change a thing. And I said, that's the job I want. So I asked him how he did it. I got some, did my research, and I found out I had to go to the recruiter. So I go to the recruiting station in town. Now, did you know that when you open the door at the recruiting station, the fresh air activates their saliva glands? It's not the fresh air? Huh. So I walk in, and of course they're all excited because somebody is walking into them. They don't have to hunt someone down, right? So he's like, oh, how can I help you? I have positions open for a cook today. I'm like, I bet you do. And I said, I want to go warrant officer flight training program. You know what he said to me? No, you can't do that. What's my favorite saying? Why not? He says, you need perfect eyesight. Yeah, I got that. And he says, you need perfect physical condition. Yeah, I have that too. And he's like, well, you need a college degree. And I'm like, nah, 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 I have 2.5. And he's like, well, you need leadership. And I said, well, I started an honor society on my college campus, served as president for 2 years, and the last year served on the national board. Does that count? And he goes, then he starts sputtering. He's like, but God, you can't, because, and I'm like, what do I say? Why not? And he goes, I don't know how to do the paperwork. Okay, so let's do the paperwork together, shall we? And we figured it out. But at every place we went to the flight doctor to get the physical. And he says, little girl, Don't you know you're wasting my time? This is a hard program. It's really tough to get into. So we go to the MEP station, Military Entrance Processing Station, and they said, little girl. Now, I'm not that little. It says, little girl, don't you know that you should have taken your test before you did your flight physical? Because what happens if you fail these tests? Really? Everywhere I went, I was challenged. Everywhere I went, they tried to dissuade me from what I believed in. I had to believe in myself first. And as business owners, we have to believe in ourselves first. Because if we don't believe in ourselves, who believes in us? It's hard, isn't it? Don't you know those people that you have in your life that are kind of wishy-washy? That don't really have a firm conviction or belief? Do you want to hang around with them? Would you want to do business with them? Be the one that's passionate and convicted and has that firm belief in yourself, even when no one else has that belief in you. You think anyone made fun of Thomas Edison? What about the Wright brothers? You think they were made fun of? Nothing extraordinary happens until you believe in yourself. It's the basis of everything. Believe in yourself first. So, I made it into flight school, the program, and I have to tell you, I later found out when my packet went up to the Pentagon that there were only 2 slots in the entire nation when my packet went up. 2. You know, if I had known that, I might not have been so confident. I might have been a little more tentative. But you know what? I didn't know that. And sometimes we're not supposed to know, right? We're just supposed to believe. So I go into first basic training. That was fun. 42 women in one big barracks bay. It wasn't a slumber party, gentlemen. There were no pillow fights. It was work. So then we go to Warrant Officer Candidate School. Now, first I gotta tell you, the day I graduated from basic training, they promoted me to sergeant to go to Warrant Officer Candidate School. Do you think the drill sergeants liked me? No. Do you think they wanted me to succeed? No. So they were hard on me. Best thing they ever could have done. Because I went into Warrant Officer Candidate School ripped. I mean ripped. I looked good. Okay? I was like so in shape because they smoked me every chance I got. Get up, get down, push, all the time. I get to Warrant Officer Candidate School and I was ready. Wow, they did me a favor. Didn't really think of that at the time. Warrant Officer Candidate School is one of the toughest schools the Army has. We started off with 7 women. 2 finished. Because physically, the standards for the males and the females were the same. There was no male-female standard. There was the warrant officer standard, and it was not lowered for anyone. So, Sherry and I finished first and third in the class. Because if you didn't excel, you were gone. So we're lined up on graduation day. Our families are there. It's a Friday. We're all so proud. We get our pin as a warrant officer. And they did the blood pinning. Does anybody know what that is? That's, you know, the little prongs they have in the pins. They set it on your shoulder and they go. It's fun. It's rite of passage. So we did our blood pinning. Our families are there and they lined us up to let us release us. And they said, Chief Mac, because that's what they called me. Chief Mac, congratulations. You're honor graduate. You get to start flight school on Monday. Everybody else gets 2 weeks off. What? So I started flight school on Monday. Went right into aeromed, aerodynamics, all this training that was going on. We did, we got into the systems. We were flying Hueys in flight school back then. And the Hueys, we had to learn every single component on that entire airframe. I had to be able to look at it, point at it, name it, what it did. What happens if it fails? What are you going to do? For every single component on the airframe. Now, I was the only girl in this class. Do you think they slowed it down for me? Ladies, how many of you would be comfortable pointing to a component of an engine and knowing what it does? I'm calling my dad at night. Daddy, what's a pump do? What's a step-down transformer do? I had no idea. So I made it through. And we start doing startups in a simulator and learning how to start up the helicopter, and then we're going to the flight line. And it's like the kid in the candy shop. I'm so excited. We get to fly. Now you gotta understand, I probably was only in the military about 5 months, and I'm flying a helicopter today. Woohoo! So we go out to the flight line and we have the list, and we look on the list, and we see who our instructor pilot is, and we find our instructor pilot. We go over to the table, and I'm like, so excited. And he goes, oh, great. Warm welcome, eh? And I found out really fast that he didn't believe women should fly. But he couldn't fail me just because of my gender. That would be discrimination, right? But he could make me want to fail. And he could not teach me. So has anyone flown a helicopter before? Okay, a couple, yeah, it's okay. So you actually flown it? No, you rode it. Oh, you rode in one. Oh, there's a difference between flying it and riding in one. So when you fly the helicopter, you've got the cyclic, it's the stick here. Then you've got the pedals, they control how much power goes to the tail and keeps your tail behind you, because it's kind of bad when it's cocked off to the side. And then you've got the collective right here. It's a lever that comes up and down. And the lever controls how much power goes to the engines for your lift. So it all works together. It's like multitasking on steroids. Then you're also scanning for obstacles, and you're talking to air traffic control, and you're communicating, and it is crazy busy in there. So, but I have to tell you, ladies, I want you to sit up straight for this one. Women make the best helicopter pilots. Sorry, fellas. Because we have a softer touch. And with the cyclic, a soft touch is what's needed, especially to hover. Hovering is when you're 6 to 8 feet off the ground. And you've got to think all that wind is blowing right back underneath you, so it's very unstable. It's very difficult to fly. It's the most difficult thing to learn. But it's also the first thing you have to learn, because you have to be able to pick it up from the pad and take it to the runway. And you do that by hovering. So we're going to learn how to hover. Now, if a soft touch is best, and you have an instructor pilot who is screaming at you, telling you you're stupid, a monkey can fly better than you, what makes you think you deserve to be here, you're wasting my time? How do you think that tension is? You think it's pretty soft and light? I was like stirring the pot. And I'd go too far to the left, and I'd over-control back to the right, and I'd go too far to the left, and the aircraft starts doing this thing. That's bad, don't do that. And he would take the controls and say, I have the controls. I knew you couldn't do it. Belief in myself was being challenged every day. The first week, no big deal. Nobody else has got it yet. The second week, okay, yeah, some people have got it. Third week, I'm the only one. Fourth week, we're halfway through the course, and I'm the only one not hovering. Fifth week, I'm getting really nervous. Sixth week, I'm going home and crying. I can't hover. the 7th week, I have to tell you, my heart was saying, quit. You don't deserve this kind of abuse. And my head is like, no way am I going to let him win. I'm going to show up every day and try my best every day. And so the 7th week I walk in and kind of walking in, kind of beaten and down. And I look up and he's not there. He took vacation for a week. Woo! It's this young guy, and so I'm all excited, right? And I go walking over to the table where he is, and he's looking at my file. Ooh. Where the grade sheet from every day for the 7 weeks before is a U for unsatisfactory. U. And I go, hi. And he goes, what's the deal? And my response to him was, I'm trying, I don't know, I just got to stop. Stop. I'm like, because, crying in uniform is wrong. I'm like, okay. And he goes, do you want this? I'm like, oh, why do you think I put up with 7 weeks of this, right? Yes, I want this. I want it so bad. He goes, and let's do this. He taught me one thing that day and I hovered. One thing. Have you ever been so close to something that one thing makes all the difference? Tipping point, right? I'm going to teach you that one thing. You want to learn how to hover? All right, raise your hand. Raise it up high. Come on, the person next to you won't know you didn't put deodorant on. Come on. Okay, so take your hand and you're going to bring the elbow down and tuck your elbow against your rib cage. Pivot the elbow down, that's where your cyclic would be. How far can you move your wrist? Not very far. He taught me to brace my elbow to strengthen my platform. One thing! And I hovered that day. And that instructor, who, gosh, I wish I could remember his name, he taught me more in 5 days than I learned in the entire 7 weeks prior. So the next week when I go back to the flight line, it's check ride week, final exam, and I walk in, and he's there all ready to fail me, right? And he couldn't. Ooh, I think he was mad. He could not fail me. Now I gotta tell you, it wasn't pretty. I didn't have 7 weeks of practice. I only had a week. But I knew enough to pass. And guess what? I didn't have to be first to win. That's my lesson number 2 to you. You get to determine your success. I had never been so happy in my life than being last. That's a big deal when I'd always been first, right? I got to determine what success is. Because let me tell you what happens when you compare yourself to someone else. There will always be someone that is thinner, smarter, drives a better car, has greener grass, has a better house, more clients. Whatever it is you're comparing, you lose. So why even bother? Forget about it. Stop comparing. All it does is suck the joy out of the life that you have. Instead of comparing yourself to anyone else, compare yourself to yourself first. My hair looks better today than yesterday. My business is doing better today than last year. Compare yourself to yourself. Why would you want to copy anybody else anyway? You don't know what's really going on with someone else. For our businesses, we definitely don't want to compare to anybody else. Because how do you know that they're really successful underneath the perception? Maybe they're doing something that's not ethical. Maybe they're doing something else that they shouldn't be doing. Maybe you should come up with your own ideas. Be true to yourself and your business first. Stop comparing yourself to someone else. You determine what that success means. If you don't know what it is, you gotta figure it out. Is it a dollar amount? Is it a number of hours worked? Is it a number of clients? It's gonna be different for each one of you. And it's okay. Because you get to decide. Turn to the person next to you and say, I get to decide. Is that going to change how you look at your business? Is that going to change how you look at your business? You get to decide what that success is, not anyone else. So, I went on to my first duty assignment. Fort Grown, New York. Anyone been there? You've been there too? Come on. You flew a helicopter there, right? Snows every month but July. Almost to Canada, up in the Adirondacks. I knew I was in trouble when I got my house and they issued me my own snowblower. Really? Not a lawnmower, right? It's a snowblower. And, but they were really good to us there because if it was colder than -30, they let us do physical fitness inside. It was cold. So it was my first duty assignment though. And so we go to right from flight school there and they're like, okay, now that you're in the real world, I want you to forget about what you learned in flight school, right? I'm like, what? Has that ever happened to anybody else? You get to the real world and they tell you what you learned in school isn't really true? Why don't they just teach it that way in school? So I get to my unit and they're like, okay, so the first thing you need to learn, Chief Mac, is that you have to comply with crew rest. Crew rest? Well, I just, did 15, 16-hour days in flight school. And I'm like, you can't do that here. We need you on your A game every single day. Not every other day. So you have to get at least 12 hours of rest. I'm like, really? We need you to take care of yourself when you're not here and when you're here. And I'm like, looking at him like, really? And he goes, look, you're flying an $18 million helicopter with a crew of 4 and 13 passengers. Some of them might be generals, congressmen, or secretary of defense. There's no such thing as a peak performance, because when you have a peak, you have a valley. How good are you in the valley? We want you at optimal performance. Now, if you ran at an optimal performance level all the time, would it be better than having a peak and a valley? Absolutely. Do you think you'd be better in your business if you ran at an optimal level? Would you be better for your families? Optimal performance. Optimal performance starts with taking care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, who takes care of you? Nobody. Nobody. So gentlemen, that means when you're sick, go to the doctor. Ladies too. But ladies, we tend to take care of everyone else and think it's selfish if we take care of ourselves, right? I can't take care of myself first. I can take care of everybody else first until I'm sucked dry and have nothing left for myself. Wrong. Let me tell you what, gentlemen, you have no problem taking care of yourself first, with very rare exceptions. You want to, go to the gym or do something, you just do it. We need to do that too as women. We all need to do this, men and women. We need to take care of ourselves first, because when we do that, we run at an optimal level. When we do that, we're better for our family. When we do that, we're our best self. Are we robbing our friends, our family, our employees, our clients if we're not our best self? Don't they deserve it? It's not selfish to take care of yourself first. It's required. It's required. All levels of yourself, take care of. So, They also continued my training. And has anyone flown an airplane? Okay, we've got a couple planes. So you guys might be familiar with the term, the acronym CAN. Have you heard of CAN before? CAN, C, communicate. A, aviate. N, navigate. Communicate, aviate, navigate. The 3 pillars of flying. And I will maintain you to the 3 pillars of life, of our business. Communication. Everything we do is communication. In the helicopter it was, I have the controls, you have the controls, I have the controls. It's not just communication. It's a 3-way active, positive communication. Active and positive. Imagine if you communicated with all your clients before they asked you for something. If you anticipated their potential needs. If you took care of them to that level of communication, would that change your business? How many of you say yes, it would change your business? Positive and active communication. We're not reacting. We're being proactive. Aviating, and you're probably sitting there thinking, how is she going to make me aviate? I'm going to make y'all fly today. I'm going to make you soar today. Aviating is action. It's action. How do you eat an elephant? Is there any other way to eat it? How do you take any kind of action towards a big goal? It's one step or one action at a time. Everything we do is action too, isn't it? And it's being present, it's being proactive in our action that makes all the difference. Action. What about it? You think you guys can be aviators with me? You take more proactive and present action in your life and your business? Would it make a difference? Navigate. If you are taking action that's not proactive, it's reactive, I hate to break it to you, but you're on someone else's flight plan. Navigating, do you know where you're going? If you don't know where you're going, you're on somebody else's flight plan. Don't you want to be on your own? Navigating. In the helicopter, it was a lot. Are you ready? We'd have to check our maps, file a flight plan, get a risk assessment, safety brief, commander's briefing, pre-flight, fuel check, operational briefing, mission briefing, I'm not done yet, passenger briefing, and crew briefing. Then we would start the checklist. That's a whole lot of preparation for one training flight. And if it was a real mission and I was flying generals, and we were flying, when we flew the Secretary of Defense, we did the entire mission on a rehearsal day the day before, just to practice. Serious stuff. Are you navigating on your own flight plan? Are you on somebody else's? If you don't know where you're going in your business, in your life, with your family, take some quiet time and figure it out. You only got one shot. Today's today, and you wake up tomorrow and it's gone. What are you going to do? You get to choose this. You get to choose to navigate. You get to choose your actions to aviate. You get to choose your communication. Nobody else decides any of this but you. Are you doing it? The other thing we learned right out of flight school, was we had to learn all these mission profiles. It was pretty crazy. We'd fly repelling operations one day, the next day we'd fly multi-ship, the next day we'd fly command and control, then we'd go fly nights. We'd fly different things every day. Is that a routine you can get used to? It kept kept us hopping. And it taught us really fast to be flexible and fluid. Lesson number 5. Flexible and fluid. You know, sometimes we just had to kind of roll with it. But we rolled with it within our plan, within our structure, within our navigation, right? So being flexible and being fluid in your business means you're trying new things to accomplish your goals. Maybe it's trying social media. Maybe it's trying something else that you haven't done before. Because are you going to get any different results if you don't try anything new? Right? You're going to get the same results unless you try something different. So be flexible and be fluid and be willing to try new things. You know, Jennifer Aniston says, nothing extraordinary happens when you're in your comfort zone. I think she's pretty extraordinary. How about you guys? And there's so many other examples. Eleanor Roosevelt said almost the same thing. You know, I'm so far out of my comfort zone, I can't find the box anymore. Can you tell me where it is? I'm so comfortable being uncomfortable. And the growth and the absolute amazing things have happened since I started doing that. Take a risk. Calculated risk, but take a risk and try something new to get a different result. And if it doesn't work, then you fail forward. It's only a failure if we don't keep trying. So the last lesson, do I have time for the last lesson? We're good? Excellent, I'm getting the nod, so that's good. You guys want the next lesson? Have you learned anything good today? Have you learned anything good from me? Okay, just checking. So, turn the person next to you and say, this is changing my life. All right. I like it. Okay, so the last lesson, while I was at Fort Drum, New York, well, you know what, before I tell you this lesson, I want to answer a question, because I get asked this a lot right now, and Terry mentioned in the introduction of me that I was just filmed for 2020, the new show. And I'm sure you guys are probably wondering what it's about. Anybody wondering that? If you're not, I'll stop. So the 2020 news show it's coming up. The whole segment is about workplace issues. And most specifically, they filmed me speaking about being stalked and physically abused by another pilot while I was in the military. And yet I still had to keep flying missions and do my job. So that's a whole nother keynote. A lot more of that story. But just so you can know, so you can be watching, but you know, I had to learn. I had to learn as I went, and had to learn what I could do and how to survive in a situation where I really thought at any point I could die. And that includes being in the helicopter. So, just so you know what that story is. Okay, so the last lesson that I'm going to leave you with starts with a story. I was at Fort Drum during the 1998 Great North American Ice Storm. Anyone remember that? 114 hours of freezing rain fell upon upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. 114 hours. We knew the storm was coming, so we were able to, you actually could fold the blades of the helicopter to fit them into like the aircraft, and we folded the blades of the helicopters and we hangered them for that time frame. It accumulated up to 4 inches of solid ice. 4 inches. The ice was so thick on the huge superstructure power lines that nobody wants to live under, that they crumpled like they were made of paper. The entire electrical infrastructure for the Northeast was decimated during the storm. The ice was so thick on the roads that the snow plows couldn't get down underneath to cut through it. to try to break it up. And the salt that they used on the roads wouldn't cut through down 4 inches. The area was literally impassable. Without power, dairy farmers, and dairy is a large industry up there, dairy farmers couldn't milk all their cows, and they died. Trees looked like someone took a lawnmower to the whole tops of them, and the maple industry, with the sap for maple syrup, was decimated. It was a very critical time. Over 5 million people were without power, some for months. We got the call from the governor's office. The governor's office needed 2 people. Did I say people? 2 aircraft, more people than that. 2 aircraft to fly down to Albany, which is about an hour-and-a-half flight from upstate New York to the mid-state. We had to fly 2 aircraft to fly the governor, FEMA, congressmen, state congressmen, and towards the end of the week, journalists around to see the damage. I got the call. So I was activated up, and we had to plan the flight. So a lot of flight planning, right? But for a mission, it's even more. Well, this was going to be a tricky flight plan. It was still cold. It was still below freezing, which is why the roads were still impassable. And it was cloudy. So below freezing and cloudy means, what are clouds made of? Water, and below freezing means ice. So it was icing. Icing in a helicopter's bad. But you know what? The Black Hawk has a really sophisticated anti-icing system. It takes the exhaust from the engine and it sucks it into a little tube, and that tube pushes that hot air into the rotor blades, and that's the anti-icing system. Feeling good about flying in ice, right? Yeah. So it's going to be tricky. We're going to be in icing for about 45 minutes. In the last 45 minutes of the flight, we'll fly visually. So it's called an IFR, Instrument to Visual Flight Plan. Okay. 2 helicopters. I'm in one. I'm the co-pilot. I sit in the right seat. Over here is the pilot in command, Derek. And in the back is the colonel from brigade. We're at the company. Then there's the battalion. Then there's brigade. We didn't know who he was. He was high-ranking. He was our liaison at the governor's office. We'd never met him before. But he's the colonel. Who's in charge? Which pilot?
Warrant officer.
Warrant officer. Yes, that's right. We're both warrant officers, so one of us was in charge. Pilot in command was in charge. So we take off. We punch into the clouds. We turn on our anti-icing, and we're flying. And yes, it bounces like that. So we're flying along. I'm on the controls. He's talking to air traffic control and doing the navigating. And all of a sudden, does that sound like it's a good thing? Massive caution alarm. And it went something like this in the aircraft. Oh, shoot! You think that's what we said? Okay, controls feel okay. Nothing felt different. It was the first thing we'd look for. No hard over, no change in the controls and the responsiveness. Everything's feeling okay. Pilot in command. Oh my God, we got a master caution. A little panic. Reset the master caution. We have to reset it because if something else goes wrong, we want it to go off again. We reset it, we start looking to see what's wrong. And we finally figure out that the gauge for engine number 1 RPM is going up and down. Now, can you tell a difference in the RPM in your car when you press the gas and release it? Can you hear a difference in the engine? This is a jet engine over my head. It sounded steady. It wasn't fluctuating. Instantly, all the training and procedures and all the studying kicked in, and I said, it's a signal data converter chip malfunction, because all that raw data goes into a computer chip, just like our cars, and goes into what we see in our cockpit display, our fancy dashboard. Okay? I said, it's a chip malfunction. Everything's okay. No! Fluctuating RPM. We need to pull the engine back to idle. You pull that engine back to idle and put our engine in not full operational power, we lose our anti-icing. And we're in the clouds. I said, no, Derek, it's a chip malfunction. Leave it alone. No. Emergency procedure says, and he reaches up to grab the throttle. I had a choice, right? Don't touch that throttle, Derek. You want to wait until we're out of the clouds and out of the icing? Be my guest. But we're not losing our anti-icing. We are not going to do that. Look it up in the book. We have a checklist, and then we have the book with the detailed procedures. It's like about that thick. It's kind of hard to get out when you're in the front of the helicopter. He gets the book out. He's muttering. We get out of the clouds. I'm waiting for him to say, let's pull it back, right? We're still talking to air traffic control and everything's normal, but he's not mentioning the emergency procedure. We get on final approach into Albany, and he goes, crew chief, please write up this aircraft for a signal data converter chip malfunction. Good idea. So we write it up. We get the part in a couple days later from the National Guard. We start flying missions. And the colonel, who was in the back, comes up to me. Chief Mack, we need you to fly this mission tomorrow. Here's the information. I grab my notepad out of my pocket, jot it all down. Yes, sir. We'll take care of it, sir. And I take it to my pilot in command, Derek. Next day, same thing. The next day, the same thing. End of the week, the colonel says, Chief Mack in my office. We were visiting the airfield. His office was a closet. Yes, sir. He says, why didn't you tell me you weren't the pilot in command? I didn't know you didn't know, sir. He goes, I don't know if you know this, but I flew Blackhawks too. And if you hadn't stopped him when you did, I was going to stop him. I was unbuckling from my seat to come up and stop him. Good job. And all I could think is, phew. No court-martial today. So the last lesson that I leave you with, well, let me tell you this. Did I have a position of power in that aircraft? I had no rank. The colonel had the rank. I had no position of authority. He was the pilot in command. But I had to lead from where I was. And that's what we all have to do. To make a difference, you need to do. You see, we all have the ability, we all have the capability, but we mostly have a responsibility to lead from where we are every day. Don't wait to get appointed. Don't wait to get nominated. Don't wait to be asked. Lead from where you are every day. And when you do that, you'll make a difference in people's lives, in your business, in your family, in everything you do. Isn't that what we're put on this earth to do? Is make a difference? Who does not want to make a difference and leave their mark on this world? Anyone? Of course we do. Guess what? You get to choose to do it. But it's a choice. If you're sitting back waiting to get asked, waiting until you're really needed, you're missing out. You get to choose every day. Who's going to choose with me? And when you do, you will soar higher and further in your life than you ever thought possible. Thank you for having me today.